This is a video blog in response to evaluation question number 3 in regards to target audience. The question is, what have you learnt from your audience feedback? Now, I used audience feedback for a number of reasons along the entire process of making both my ancillaries, that's my digipack and my magazine cover, as well as my music video. Having that outside perspective allowed me to create products which were suitable for the target audience, whilst also gaining an outside perspective on things that I hadn't already picked up on. So if there was a fault within the music video, then I was able to pick that up from the feedback that I got. I recorded a majority of the feedback that I obtained for the music video and the ancillaries. I'll put a link below to the video that I took after creating my movie, my music video, where I asked 2 separate people, both of which would fit into the category of my target audience, asking them a series of questions. These included, but were not limited to, did you like the narrative? Was the narrative clear? What did you like about the music video? And is there anything you would change or add? In response to this question, I got a few suggestions to change lighting and include clips to make the narrative more clear. So I could then go back to my music video and ensure that I had changed those so that they'd be more appealing to the audience. In asking what things that they liked about the music video, I was able to establish what my strengths were, and having an idea of this meant that I could replicate those sorts of things throughout the music video to make it stronger. Things such as the reverse effect was very popular with my target audience. Therefore, I decided to replicate this 4 times as opposed to the 2 times I would have originally used it. And when I asked, is there anything you would change or add, there was quite a good response in terms of, as I said, colour, lighting. For the colour grading, I changed to make more of a contrast between when the actor was happy and when he was sad. So I also managed to create a focus group before even starting on the music video, because I had 2 very clear narratives that I wanted to choose between, but I was finding it quite hard to distinguish which ones were going to allow me to explore the more creative side of creating music videos. So having a focus group allowed me to work out where my strengths and weaknesses were from AS to A2 and how I could improve on certain things and apply those to a narrative that would be interesting for a target audience and allow me to obtain a good grade. I had the 3 narratives of a teacher suffering with alcoholism, someone who's in an abusive relationship, which included images of smoking and drugs, and then a train journey that was entirely lip-syncing in a very creative style again, but with a twist at the end where there'd be a shooting style thing on the public train. Now, all of these ideas had their strengths and weaknesses, but it seemed to me from the feedback I got from the focus group was that the first option, which was of the teacher struggling with alcoholism, would appeal to a much wider audience, in that there is a lot of people that have experienced school life and therefore they could see it from the perspective of having a teacher suffering from those mental health issues, as well as portraying a young male with mental health issues, which is something that isn't explored a lot within media. And so the target audience for that narrative would be much stronger than it was with the other 2, where the other 2 could fall into a category where they might be almost cliched. Something I definitely wanted to avoid. I wanted to create something which was my own and which was different from anything that had been shown before through media. So I worked which narrative was most popular amongst the focus group, and from there I regularly went back to the same people that I had asked in the focus group, asked them if they liked what I was doing, which was brilliant because it offered me some support and guidance and allowed me to figure out again all the strengths and weaknesses of the work that I was creating and the input that I was giving into the coursework. So I used audience feedback throughout the process of creating both my ancillaries and my music video. So I learned from obtaining audience feedback that this is absolutely vital in creating media products that suit a target audience and that appeal to a target audience and that make sense and have a good quality to them. Because for example, I initially began filming on my iPhone 7 Plus in some shots, and although they were very good when I uploaded them to Premiere Pro, which is the software that I use for editing, I found that the resolution dropped dramatically. Therefore, I had suggestions from my audience feedback to use a 4K camera instead, which was much harder to find. I also had to book out equipment quite a lot, but it meant that the quality of my work was much better than it would have otherwise been, which is something that I wouldn't have realised unless target audience had pointed the audience had pointed that out. So the strengths of the feedback that I obtained were that they were pointing out things which I otherwise wouldn't have realised, such as cuts in the audio. So towards the end of the music video, just as it does at the start, the music finishes, and then I included an audio clip at the start and finish of children playing and laughing. At the beginning, I'd remembered to sort of smooth this transition out and fade one into the other so it flowed much smoothly. Whereas towards the end I had forgotten to do so, so when I played the music video back to get some feedback for it, that was pointed out to me, and that's something I could change, which if I hadn't have changed might have affected the overall aesthetic of the music video as well as my grade. However, the weaknesses of collecting feedback were that sometimes that people had their own opinions as to what they liked, and often these things would be either unachievable or they wouldn't be going in the direction of what I wanted the music video to be. And although I was appealing to a certain target audience, when I had 4 different people telling me different things as to what they wanted and how they wanted the shots to be ordered and how they wanted the character to be portrayed, I couldn't pick just one, and so I used that information and I combined their responses to get one that would in some ways suit everyone's opinions and likes. So in some instances, the target audience feedback that I did get was more of a hindrance than it was a help. In some instances, the target audience feedback that I did get was more of a hindrance than it was a help, because I was trying to achieve things that were almost unachievable in the timescale that I had set myself to finish the work. So the feedback that I obtained was very important to me, because before even beginning making the music video, making the ancillaries, I had people helping me choose a narrative, which then laid the path for me creating the digipack and the advert. I was also able to obtain feedback on the coloration of things, such as the shots, and people were able to point things out, symbolism and motifs that I hadn't otherwise thought of, so then I could play upon these and expand on them and make them more of a thing than they were, and make them more of a statement than they were. So specifically with my music video, I found that it helped for me to have audience feedback to allow me to respond to what the audience wanted, which can be hard when producing films, as often you'll try to achieve something which you like, which isn't exactly what the audience, your target audience actually wants. So having the feedback allowed me to have that outside perspective, which I wouldn't have otherwise had, and then I was able to act upon that, which I wouldn't have otherwise done if I hadn't have obtained that feedback. Another weakness of my audience feedback was that I initially chose to use a focus group that was almost half and half males and females, with a variety of ages, people ranging from 17 years of age up to 32 years of age. So there was a big variety in ages and genders, where later on when I was collecting audience feedback, instead I was mainly using people who were from the target audience, but not so much variation in genders and ages, which I think if I were to do it again, I would make sure I use that variation of different people throughout the audience feedback as I was creating the music video and as I was creating the ancillaries. So that was a weakness, but it wasn't a weakness within the actual audience feedback I got itself. It was a weakness that I'd imposed on the feedback. If I were to have kept with the same focus group, or perhaps chose more people but still kept that variation, then I probably would have been more successful in creating a very varied response to my pieces. So it was very important for me to obtain this feedback because it allowed me to create products which I was very happy with and my target audience was very happy with, meaning that I could reach new levels which I hadn't in AS and create more variation within my own work. And as well as being able to move from AS to A2 using more creativity than I had before, which was something that a lot of people liked and I liked as well. And I felt supported with having audience feedback in that they could point out flaws in my work that I wouldn't have otherwise noticed.